Hey everyone, we're back. And today we are going to be talking about discernment on a date. I'm going to go not only into discernment on a date, but also how to set yourself up in a place where you're very comfortable before you go on a first date. And then also just some general things about how to be safe and um, just things that would be best practices after a date, before a date, things like that are going to be incorporated into this video about discernment. I have actually written out some notes. I'm going to have some suggestions, some stuff in the show notes for you today. So, first of all, when you were going on a first date, most of dating right now occurs online. Also, if you meet someone somewhere and then you exchange numbers and decide to meet, I always suggest, and for myself too, I have made it a point of meeting people during the day for something simple, like going to coffee. And I understand that some people think, going to dinner and, if he doesn't take me to dinner on a first date, da 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 da. I understand where you're coming from in terms of feeling like you want something that's, like, oh, if this person isn't willing to do something kind of big out of the gates, maybe, that lowers my value. I am talking strictly about being in the best position to feel comfortable, be yourself, and ditch the situation. Because if you have committed to sitting at somebody with dinner, yes, you can walk out, but I think that situation, it can make it a lot harder and sometimes we're too nice and we will sit there with someone we are not comfortable with. Whereas if you're in a coffee situation, you can ditch out of that very quickly. I have walked out of a lunch date before because I was very anxious. I had a panic attack. And so that right there was like evidence that I shouldn't have been there. And I don't know, for whatever reason, I just told the guy, I'm out. I can't be here. And I'm sure he thought I was weird and I really don't care. But if you are at a coffee date, I've had something happen where I showed up at a coffee date. This person clearly wasn't the person who they said they were online. And I was, at that time, this was a long time ago, but I was like, well, maybe I got confused because I had been talking to a couple of different people and maybe I confused it. I didn't. But because I felt off, I was able to leave that date I stayed for 20 minutes. We had a quick coffee, we talked a bit, and I left. And when I got home, I looked at everything and found that I indeed was right. It was a fake picture. I had been, I guess, catfished, I don't know, into hanging out with somebody who was not the person who they presented themselves as online. So, first and foremost, I would say plan something like a walk in an area that there are a lot of people. Like maybe you could get coffee and walk around. There are like little antique malls and stuff, where you can just kind of window shop and have a nice time talking to somebody and getting to know them. And I think that those kinds of first meeting get-togethers are great. If you want it to be a date where he pays, and that's the kind of thing you like, that will show up and you can watch for that kind of behavior, usually when I go out with someone, they'll offer to pay, or you can do halvesies or whatever you feel comfortable with. That's not as important, and that's not as the focus of this video. We can talk about that later, and I will go into a video about those kinds of things, and that's more about preferences in what you like for your dates. So first and foremost, I really think going out during the day. And then the other thing is, I would make sure that if you are meeting for, I know a lot of people like to meet for drinks and things like that. I don't personally drink at all. However, I know a lot of people do, but I still would suggest to remain completely sober when you are meeting someone, probably for at least the first couple of times, because you really need to have your faculties around you so that you can see and discern who this person is. If and you're not going to know everything, but I think that you can get a good sense of somebody if you engage in the right kinds of conversations, and then you look for the things that I'm going to talk about here. So don't ever have someone pick you up from your house that you don't know on the first date or the second date, I would say. I have actually had someone come pick me up on a second date. I wouldn't do that anymore. I probably wouldn't have someone come pick me up on a third date anymore. I think you need some time to get to know somebody. So there are two main things that have happened, or that can happen. Well, one thing that happened with me is one person was a really scary driver. I was like, oh God, this was a mistake. They turned out to be a really bad choice in, it took a little while to uncover, but that was a sign right there. If you see that, that's a really bad sign if somebody is a scary driver. And I don't mean that they're like a bad driver, I mean they're a scary driver. They're trying to drive like a race car driver on the street. So there's that. Also, you don't want them to know where you live for a while. You really need to have that space. Always meet somewhere so that you can exit that situation. You don't want to be in the situation where you're relying on them. Of course, there's Uber, there's all that kind of stuff, but be independent and set that boundary, because that's another thing that's really important. This person's going to know, hey, this person isn't going to just allow me to do what I want, or, it is a way of setting a boundary right out of the gates. Hey, no, I'll meet you there. And you can also see right in that moment whether or not they respect that. That right there is the first thing where you can see whether or not someone is going to respect your boundary, or they're going to get weird about it. Because some people will, right out of the gate, get weird about that. And if they do, you may just want to bow out at that point. So, okay. So once we've got this little housekeeping thing out of the way, you meet up for coffee, you sit down with this person, and you start talking. I would ask some questions and kind of let them talk, because when I know sometimes it feels really good to, talk about everything, and sometimes we tell too much about ourselves, and then that person is not really sharing how they are, things they think, so that you can kind of gauge whether or not this person might be looking for the same things, might be right for you. So you can ask them questions, and I don't even think it's bad you may have already gotten things out of the way in a phone call, and that's another thing I would suggest is you can do a phone call first. I generally like to do a phone call or a FaceTime before I meet somebody from online if I can, or if there's a really good text thing, I will meet somebody without talking to them on the phone, as long as I'm able to do something in a really comfortable situation like a coffee. But you really do want to let somebody talk, watch their body language, their actions. Do they, when you ask them things, do they come across as glib, or do they seem kind of like they're just kind of telling stories to impress you, or and kind of shallowly, or are they able to, you know, sit with something genuine? Like, for instance, if you ask them about, oh, where's a place that you really like to vacation, or have you been on a vacation that you really enjoyed, or have you gone on a road trip you really enjoyed, and they start going into some elaborate thing about how they love to travel the world and they've been everywhere and they know, they just know all this stuff and they know everything, and it almost feels a little off-putting somehow. I don't know how, like, you're sitting there and you feel really impressed maybe, but then you're kind of like, did that happen? I mean, is that, it sounds so grandiose. It sounds so large, you know, it sounds so kind of over the top. Or if they might be talking about anything and it'll start sounding kind of over the top, and like, I understand that when we're on first dates, we do want to impress each other, or you're trying to put your best foot forward maybe. However, I think that sometimes people get nervous, and somebody who's nervous versus somebody who is grandiose, it's obvious once you've seen it a few times. So somebody who's grandiose acts very will act very almost matter of fact, arrogant, almost all-knowing, versus somebody who's nervous will maybe talk extremely fast and maybe get kind of giddy, or that is going to be a different energy than somebody who's seen the world and they have something to tell you about. You know, it just, something about it sounds odd. So let them talk. Ask questions that are probing, however, not in a manner that isn't too intrusive. I think it's really important to watch for how people talk about things like their exes. Like, I think it's fair to ask the question, because you don't want to go too much into talking about details. However, it's really important to find out how maybe their last couple of relationships ended. And you can ask in a very non-confrontational, a way that flows. Like, you can say, well, you know, how long have you been single? And did that last relationship, how did that end? And, you know, I can say that my last relationship didn't end well, but I have responsibility in that, and as well as the other person. There were things about that person that I missed, but I don't even need to go into that. And I think the main thing is to see that if the person takes some kind of responsibility, or if their ex is just a horrible, crazy person. And then say, well, what about the one before that, the relationship before that? You know, and if everybody they've been with is weird or crazy or has a problem, that may be something to think about. Because if they never take any responsibility, that is a problem. And even if that person was really bad, where's the responsibility in their own discernment? Did they say anything about, wow, you know, there were some things I missed about their personality that it would have been valuable for me to pay attention to, and, you know, I just don't think we were a match. And, you know, did they come at it in a way that is thoughtful and not accusatory of that other person. Something that I would say that's really important to watch for is something called negging. It stands for like a negative jab at somebody. It comes from the pickup culture. And I don't know who out there is aware of the pickup culture, but the pickup culture, it's pretty, I would say, overall toxic. It was designed to kind of bring up certain men's confidence that didn't have a lot, and they teach a thing called negging, where you would, in this case, take a woman's confidence down, or try to, because if a truly confident woman is going to see this and be like, thanks, no, I would not like to talk to you anymore, sir. But it'll be something, here's what it may look like. A backhanded compliment. Something like this. Huh, that's a pretty interesting outfit. Kind of a bold statement. But, I guess you can pull it off. Yuck. Yuck. That's not nice. That's rude. It's disrespectful. It's so somebody who is sitting very confidently in their self-esteem will maybe say something about that, maybe keep it to themselves and not date them again. Or say, yeah, I really do like this outfit and I feel quite good in it. Somebody who is working on their self-esteem may take that comment and be like, oh yeah, well, I was just trying this out. Don't explain yourself. No, don't. Not in that case. Heck no. You just say, yep, I like this outfit. Yep. Yeah, I do look damn good, thanks. We don't explain ourselves when someone's they're doing that. And the other one, they may say something, like, you make a joke and they say, God, you're stupid. Really? What makes you say that? Is there something that I've done that would make you say that? Interesting. Don't let someone get away with those kinds of comments. And if they make those kind of comments, I wouldn't go on a second date with them. I just think that's a stop. No. So nagging, when you see disrespectful comments, and then disrespect, this is going to lead into the next point here, which is if you see them disrespecting, okay, we talked about disrespecting people in their past relationships. If you see, this is kind of a common one you hear about as a red flag, but disrespecting wait staff, anybody who is working at the coffee shop, or they're rude to people in general. If you notice rudeness toward, I don't know, anyone of like any service people or anything like that, that is not okay. And it will end up being put onto you at some point. They will act that way toward you. That's just a matter of time. If they talk badly about people in their life, if they're gossipy, talking badly about people in their life a lot, if they've lost a lot of friends, all of those kinds of things within that, I think that all kind of falls under disrespectful speech. And if you see that in someone, that's a really important thing to watch for on a first, second, third date when you're getting to know someone. If they disrespect your boundaries, and I talked about this in the first one, like if you said you want to meet them and they're just like, oh, what's wrong with me coming to pick you up? That's disrespectful. That's like that might not even come off as they're being disrespectful of your boundaries, but that is. If someone tries to kiss you on the first date and that's not something that you want, and they're like, oh, come on, or oh, come on, about anything. No. Like, why would you need to explain your reasons for, if someone keeps pushing you sexually, like they're keep, oh, well, we've gone on this many dates, can I come over now? And it's like, no. If someone gets pushy about that, forget it. They're not respectful. They're disrespectful of you. They are, they're not patient. They're looking for something that they are trying to get you into bed, and chances are once they do, they will be gone. Because somebody who is respectful and is looking for the same things as you, in this case I'm talking about something more long-term, they are not going to press you. They are going to respect your boundaries. And then lastly, just in this section here, I just want to say trust your gut. And I'm going to give you several suggestions on people who know about this. I know about this now. For myself, I know how to really distill. I really know what it feels like. I know what that feels like in my body now more than I ever have. It's also called your gut is the feeling. Then you also have that voice, that still small voice. You need to listen to that. It's almost always right. Now, there are people who sometimes have an issue with telling whether or not it's your gut or if you're overreacting. And that can happen to people who have had a lot of adverse childhood experiences, which is that there's something called an ACE score, adverse childhood experiences. There is a person who I love online. Her name is Runkle. She runs a YouTube channel called The Crappy Childhood Fairy, and she has a lot of information on this, and she talks about how to get in touch with that discernment, whether or not you are going overboard. But in this case, for this video, I want to say just trust it, because it's better safe than sorry right now. And if you are feeling, you need to tune into your body when you're with somebody. How do you feel? Do you feel like, sometimes I'll notice I almost feel sick. Or trembly inside, like a little bit like, I think you know what that feeling is. Most people know what that is. When something's just off, you can either hear it in here or feel it in here. And the feeling, usually we can talk ourselves out of it. So don't let yourself do that. I will make a video about a couple of very intense and scary experiences that I went through when I did not listen to my gut in the first place, went forward with things, and later got myself, thank goodness, out of these situations. But it was very scary. And I don't want that to happen to you. So I am going to also suggest a book called The Gift of Fear by Graham DeBecker. I have read all of these books, and I have watched the channels I'm also going to suggest to you. These are all great resources. So first and foremost, I would go, I'm going to suggest several. I'm going to put these in the show notes so that you can grab them. But I would say The Gift of Fear, start with that. If you, it's about trusting your gut feeling. It's about that we have this knowing, okay? So I am definitely going to suggest that. Second, I am going to suggest Becoming Bulletproof by Evie Pomporis. She is, she's an FBI agent. She was Secret Service for both President George W. Bush and President Barack Obama. She's an amazing person. She tells you how to position yourself in such a way where people cannot take advantage of you, how to speak to people, and how to perceive when someone is dangerous. So I highly suggest this book as well. And there's another book called 5 Types of People Who Can Ruin Your Life. It's about high conflict personalities, how to avoid them. And we're talking about psychopaths and narcissists specifically. It's by Bilyeu. You can get all of these books either in hard copy or audio form. And then I'm also going to suggest 2 YouTube channels. Crappy Childhood Fairy, which I just mentioned, by Anna Runkle, who helps people who have had, a lot of issues with childhood and stuff like that, that have impacted how they deal with their adult relationships, and romantic relationships is a big one on her channel. And so I think it's really helpful. And she has, she's in a successful marriage and has a wonderful partner, and she talks about all of that. And then lastly, I'm going to say YouTube channel Women of Impact by Lisa Bilyeu. She has several interviews, I think 3 or 4 interviews with Evie, who wrote Becoming Bulletproof, the FBI Secret Service agent. So I guess that's it for now. I hope this helps. I think these are very important subjects. Like I said, I think that we can do some fun videos coming up, but right now I just want to get this really important information out to you about how to be safe out there when you're dating. It is so important. It is so important to have your wits about you and make sure that you are getting to know somebody in a manner where you are really present with them. So I hope this helps, and I will see you next time. Okay, bye.